So here's my take. Clancy and Breach are not actually going to be about the ongoing narrative of Trench and Dima. They're going to be about Tyler's burnout with the lore. After having discussed with some fans on Discord regarding what the album could possibly be about, I think it just makes the most sense. Because if I have to be honest, ever since Killed in Icy, the story of the Bishops, Clancy and Trench has been a bit shaky, to say the least. I'll be making a longer video of all the problems with the Dima narrative, but here's a quick rundown of the biggest problems since Killed in Icy that I've noticed. Trash, first of all, was abruptly brought in as a huge Deus Ex Machina in the Saturday music video, where he would just randomly crash into the submarine and help the 21 pilots to get out of captivity from the Bishops. Then there is Ned's horns that were retconned into being capable of seizing, first of all, and later being able to somehow just neutralize the Bishops just through Tyler doing some dances and movements, which is odd to start with, honestly. And somehow also in the outside music video, Clancy knew exactly how to use the horns and knew exactly who to seize. Like, that is an insane coincidence that I honestly wouldn't say is feasible to say that it's just luck, because it's a ridiculous amount of luck. Then there is navigating, that's 80% filler. It's just Josh and Tyler walking through the forest for the most part, with the main reveal being towards the end. That's actually the only part that's relevant to the lore. And lastly, another example here is the Paladin Strait music video, where the Glorious Gone, those who have taken their own lives due to vialism, have been reduced to fodder for the good guys to fight. It's like some Avengers Endgame kind of shit, honestly. I'll break this down in detail in another essay, but the point is, just this story has lost its consistency that made it interesting and exciting in the first place. And it's no secret that the way that both Clancy and Breach were advertised does not match the albums themselves. Both were advertised as these massive, cryptic albums that were meant to finally conclude the 9-year-long or 10-year-long narrative. But really, once they came out, Clancy only had Overcompensate and Paladin Strait as being strictly lore related, and Navigating was kind of just brought in through the music video to be lore music video. And then there is Breach, which it's been stated by Tyler himself that where the only song that's actually about the lore is City Walls, which is the first song on the track. Yeah. What about the contract? The contract, well, it takes place in Tyler's head, right? Or it's meant to be Clancy's head, but really, I actually believe that it's not. So, he said himself, though, that the contract is about him breaking a promise that he's made with the fans. He's not being super clear about that. He's just said that the fact that he kept the album hidden kind of felt like a broken promise for him, but I think it's actually something else, and I'll get into that when I get into the Breach predictions. Contrast that with Trench, the band's magnum opus according to critics and fans. Its world building was rich, layered, and very interesting. It was just very consistent all in all. Every detail mattered, but nothing since has matched it. The Scale and Icy was it was a propaganda album, as they said, and Clancy, as I said, does not really cover much. I don't think this is because Tyler doesn't care, though. It's just because he cannot maintain that same level of consistency and intensity that he used to with Trench anymore. Whether it's from family life, shifting priorities, or just loss of motivation, it all points back to one thing: burnout. Burnout is an emotional state which comes in when somebody exposes themselves to something for too long or when they're too stressed when thinking of it. I'm sure most of you have experienced it before, have it be with work, school, or with just any hobby really. I mean, I know I have felt it. But I've worked on so many projects in the past that I've just left behind because I just overworked myself. And of course, when burnout sets in, that's when the final product really suffers. The creator ends up just taking shortcuts, working on the project in a more careless manner, and really just it ends up being a poorer version of what it could have really been. And that's, I think, what's happened since Trench, where Tyler, instead of trying to deliver a poor product because of burnout, he'd just rather work on other things. Scaled and Icy was a completely different sound and feel to Trench, and Clancy instead talks about himself more than it does about the lore. Trench is known to be the band's magnum opus, both by the critics and by the fans. It was made in 2017 during the one-year-long hiatus where Tyler Joseph locked himself in the basement where he built a studio, and he just ended up completely shutting out the press, not posting anything on social media, and the result of that was some incredible world building and storytelling that to this day remains completely unbeaten. That's partly what I think that caused the burnout, because imagine you're working on something for a whole year straight without much outside contact. It's only natural that you're gonna start like feeling burnt out, you know? Imagine you were listening to Drum Show for 1,000 times over. Like, surely by the time you're done with that, you're not gonna want to listen to that song again, right? It's only natural. And that's why I think that just Trench took everything that he had in him, and from there on out, all the albums afterwards just do not reach the same level of world building. The Scaled and Icy was arguably the most poppy album that the band's made. That's what a lot of critics said, that's how a lot of the fans has felt, and generally the reception for it was not particularly great, because it was nothing like anything they'd made before. But also because when the album first came out, at least, there was no hints to the lore at all. Like, yeah, like there was the whole live stream experience and all that, don't get me wrong, which was absolutely fantastic, but I feel like that, alongside one of the songs found on Scaled and Icy, No Chances, it was tacked on at the end. It was just something that the band decided to come up with, first of all, to just have what would feel like a live concert with a live stream experience, but also to try tying it in some way into Trench. Because if it wasn't for No Chances and for the live stream experience, there's like barely anything that connects to the lore. And I think that's simply because Tyler Joseph just was burnt out after working on Trench with such a strong mindset of just working for a year straight. So he just wanted to make something completely different, and that's when the album Scaled and Icy came to be. Now, 3 years later, after Scaled and Icy came out, Clancy came to be, right? And before it came out, I'm Clancy. It was a video that was released as a form of trailer for the album, and that promised a huge cinematic experience, saying how like just catching everyone up to the lore, getting everyone hyped up for a massive return to Trench and all that, which Overcompensate literally states, and seeing like how it just got everyone excited, thinking that like it would be a massive conclusion to lore. That's at least what they promised. And well, guess what? Overcompensate comes out, which is insane. Like the visuals, like with the whole map and the sea, and then you see the neon gravestones as like the camera pans into Dima. It's an insanely exciting video. It really makes you think that they're gonna go all out with the lore. And then hell, like even the song even says, as I was saying before, welcome back to Trench. Like it just gets everyone excited. Everyone thinks that, oh my god, we're going back to Trench. We're actually going back to the Trench sound. We're going back to the whole Trench narrative. It's going to be amazing. Overcompensate, amazing reception, really followed up with the I Am Clancy video perfectly. However, afterwards is when that's when things really fell apart. Next Semester came out. It had nothing to do with the lore except for like a little Easter egg with the where Tyler had the Clancy mask on, and after that, Backslide came around, which again didn't have anything to do with lore. And then what? Like the next song after that actually had something to do with the lore was Paladin Straight, which came out with the album, of course. We're not gonna count Navigating, because this song, if it weren't for the music video, nothing there nothing there is lore related. Like none of the lyrics are actually have anything to do with that. And Pound and Straight, honestly, I feel like it also doesn't. The only thing that has to do with the lore is the actual name of the place of the Straight, the Pound and Straight. And Pound and Straight was legitimately a great cliffhanger because it got people thinking like, oh, this doesn't really sound like the end. And it actually, I think it was a really great way to get people invested in whether there would be another album coming or not, or at least another LP or EP. Or a single at least that would tie up everything. And but like other than that, the problem with the song I think is that there is the outro to it, right? After a whole minute of bird sounds, which at first I thought were just a bit of a cheap way to make the song feel longer, but now I think that there's actually a proper significance for it, and we'll get into that later, trust me. The thing is that like they just added this minute of ukulele and singing right at the end, which it's full cryptic lore talk. Like no one would understand no one would understand what it is about, yeah, unless they knew about the lore. But it's like it just feels like an afterthought. Like it's just literally added at the end of the song after there is no lore talk for the entirety of the album. It just feels generally like an afterthought, and like he did not want to work on the lore again, and then instead he was like, oh yeah, I might want to have something to tie this album in with the last one that's going to be coming out next year. So let me just add this little thing here at the end and have Nico come in suddenly to get the fans excited. Which, I mean, as I said, it works. It's just that it just feels like an afterthought legitimately. And yeah, like there's this one experience that I had that I'd like to talk about, where I was with 8 friends at a friend of mine's house back in England, and we were listening to Clancy when it came out. I convinced all of them to just listen to the album with me, even though only one of them was a 21 Pilots fan. And we watched the I Am Clancy trailer, and whoa, everyone was actually excited, like, wait, this is actually kind of cool, I really want to see how the story goes and all that. And guess what? Overcompensating comes in and they're like, hell yeah. By the time we get to Vignette, half of them are on their phone. And then, like, their attention just kind of dozes off. Because just, there is no lore. Like, there's the promise of lore that was created by them is not maintained till the end. Like, there's just the beginning and end that are related to the lore. And everything else, I think, is actually related to Burnout. As I mentioned earlier, the overexposure to the creation of music that Tyler put himself through back in 2017 when he was carrying out the hiatus is what I think sparked his burnout. He's even said in a recent Apple interview for the promotion of the contract that recently he's been struggling more to make music, specifically when it comes to the songwriting. Even though he's actually also said that he feels more confident in what he actually puts out. I think that is also reflected in the actual music that's come out since Trench. Take a look at, for example, Navigating. The chorus for that song takes over most of the song. Same for the pre-chorus in Vignette. And the verses just kind of take a back seat, really. The choruses have gotten longer, same as the pre-choruses, while the verses have just kind of lost the place that they used to have maybe in Trench and especially Vessel. Another sign is the music videos, specifically the quality of them. Navigating, for example, 80% of it has just Josh and Tyler walking through the woods, and that's it. Like, there isn't much else going on. It doesn't progress the story forward that much either, and that might show to me that it's just that they didn't really know how to carry this story forward with this video. It was kind of like a filler music video is what I'm saying. But the biggest offender here is Paladin Straight. Specifically, the visual effects that are present through it look extremely unpolished, if I have to be honest. I'm aware that the way that it works in the movie industry is that when CGI artists don't end up making a quality work when it comes to the visual effects, it has to do with the severe time restraints. And how come the CGI artists had severe time restraints? Because Tyler, I think, did not really know what to do with a Paladin Straight music video. So he might have tasked them to do the project too late. They needed an extra month of work to work on it, hence the video came out about a month after Clancy came out. And that resulted in a lot of scenes just looking a bit off, such as the lightnings coming out of the bishop's hands looking kind of cheap as they also climb down the tower, and especially the one scene where Clancy is sneaking into Dima, coming out, and just him running towards one of the towers. He looks like he's about 12 feet tall. Like, you can see that him compared to the buildings next to him, he's about a floor and a half tall, which is, it just looks really funky, I'll have to be honest. And as he runs towards the tower, you can also see that the tower looks like it would be maybe like 15 feet wide. And once he actually gets close to it, it goes back to being normal size. So just the scaling is funky, the effects themselves are a bit strange. So I think that also has to do partly with the Burnout. And look, Clancy was advertised to be this massive conclusion to the lore, as I said, with like the whole I Am Clancy trailer. And you know, in hindsight, when you look at the album through lore-shaped goggles, I think that the album is more of a character study on our protagonist, the same way that Blurryface was a character study on Nico, the antagonist of the story. Here's the twist. I think that Clancy, the album, really has to do with the burnout that Tyler's been experiencing ever since he wrote Trench more than it is about the lore. Alright, for this section of the video, we're gonna do something a bit different. I'm gonna have a one-take kind of thing, and I'm just gonna go over each song in Clancy and talk about how it relates to Burnout. I have my notes written on here, and I'm carrying around the microphone, and you'll be seeing me walking around here. And, alright, shall we just get into it then? Because the first song, as I said in one of the previous chapters, is Overcompensate. And here is honestly, as I said, one of the better songs when it comes to the lore, really, because it is completely lore-centric, Jesus Christ. But if we were to look at it from a Burnout point of view, this is Tyler trying to dive back into the lore, just full in, going all in with the lore, being like, I've not talked about the lore that much. Let me just go crazy on this one and let me get started already with it. And it makes a huge entrance, especially when preceded by the I Am Clancy trailer. Like, those two go crazy together. And it's, after all, it is an attempt to overcompensate, as I think Anthony Fantanos pointed out. And for how much has been dismissed the lore. Even the sound gives those vibes, everything is just being thrown at the wall, all the synths, it's a maximalist production. Fancy words, I know. And let's see what else I have written in here. Thing is that, as much as this is him overcompensating for things, trying to make it as lore related as possible, he, even after the big return, the pressure just doesn't disappear. It just ends up shifting into anxiety, and that's how we get into Next Semester. So, okay, Next Semester is a song that does not fit with the whole burnout theory. Tyler said himself, the song is about a panic attack he had in high school, so that already just kind of says what it is about, after all. If we were to trying to fit the song in with the whole burnout theory, I guess it feels thematically coherent to the Burnout, because they are both related to a feeling of anxiousness in the brain. One due to the panic attack, of course, and the other one due to the burnout that he's feeling, of course. The fact that he just feels the need to carry on with the story because the fans expect it, but he just can't get himself to. The presence of this song on the record, I think, kind of says that. It just kind of helps with the whole burnout feeling. The fact that there is a song about anxiety when the burnout itself can give you anxiety, I think says a lot. And then now we're getting into Backslide. Here, Tyler is stuck between a rock and a hard place. He doesn't want to backslide into old habits, as they were clearly bad and unhealthy for his mind. However, he feels like he needs to. At least one last time, to get a chance to write even just one more line, to get him closer to the finish line when it comes to this massive narrative that he's been writing for 8 years or 9 years, depending on when he wrote the song. And after the struggle of deciding whether to push forward or fall back, what's left is the emotional cold. the fatigue, the disconnection, the creeping self-doubt that sets in when burnout takes hold. And that's when we get into Midwest Indigo. I think this song is a standout, to be honest. Like, it actually holds up really well when it comes to the whole burnout theory. The coldness seeps through the lyrics, even with the "you can be so cold." Look, I was gonna make it in one take, but I had some technical issues with the flashlight of my phone breaking. So we were getting into Midwest Indigo, which I think is kind of a standout. The lyrics has the cold seeping through with literally the line saying, "You can be so cold, you make me sad and second guess myself." It's that disconnection and disenchantment that one may feel instead of what once was love towards a passion. That passion being the lore that he wrote in 2017, of course. The frost imagery, like the whole scraping of the windshields and barely scraping by even, it paints a picture of somebody who wakes up every day feeling like movement is impossible, but the view is blurred and the drive is exhausting. It's kind of like an erosion of the emotional security and warmth that Tyler might have felt, and his confidence, especially when it comes to the songwriting. Tyler's meant to be delivering this story through the album, but he just feels frozen in place, not knowing what to do exactly, because he just doesn't have it in him anymore. And this distance he's feeling ends up with him not being able to have any shut-eye, understandably, and that's where Routines in the Night comes in. Another standout in the context of burnout. This is Tyler wandering his own mind, trying to revisit what motivated him in the first place to write the narrative. He knows he should not revisit some rooms in his head, as they would bring out some like spooky memories, I guess. Like, no one really knows what might have happened in that year that he was writing Trench. And he just keeps wandering and pacing around in his head, trying to figure out how to write the album, how to continue the lore, how to conclude it. But he just cannot do it. He's just got a massive mental block. And that endless wandering mirrors burnout itself. It's just repetition with the right solution. You just end up trying to get yourself motivated to do things, and then you just end up sitting there in front of a blank page, not finding the motivation, and you end up doing something else instead. And it's just no matter how often he wanders his head, there's no breakthrough that comes in. And now we're getting into Vignette. Tyler said that this song is about addiction. He said to view the song through a lens of addiction. And I'm not going to discredit that, since he's literally stated that himself, and he knows best what a song is about. But I'd still like to view this through the lens of burnout, because the addiction he's talking about could be the obsession he may have felt with when writing Trench. The LP being represented by the vulture you can hear throughout the opening of the song, even if it's technically the sounds of an eagle. Like, I was about to die here. Even if they're technically sounds of an eagle, it's still generally regarded to be vulture sounds, because it makes the most sense regarding when it comes to the storytelling. Let's see, sorry, I lost the line I was in. The LP, yes. So there's also this really graphic imagery of skin peeling off his bones, flesh covered in bites. The promise of a proper continuation and conclusion of the storyline is eating him alive. As the shadow of Clifford, aka the vulture found on the cover of Trench, of the album cover, it grows bigger above Tyler, slowly being swallowed by it. Hence the vignette. The vignette is actually the shadow that's being cast on Tyler. Now, the craving is kind of like Smithereens and what's the song? Now, the craving is similar to Smithereens in Trench. It's an interlude. It's just a cute song about his wife, Jenna. It sounds simple, sweet, and it's outside the lore entirety, and I think it's also outside of the burnout. And it's a nice breather, because, especially for him, I think, because he can just write from his heart instead of having to talk about his insecurities, or instead of having to talk about how bad the whole experience of having to write this lore feels to him now. Next up is Lavish. I think this one also does not have anything to do with the burnout, the same way that it doesn't have anything to do with the lore. However, I think it shows one really important thing. It shows that if Tyler is not limited by the fact that he feels the need to make a lore-related album, he actually can come up with some pretty creative stuff. It's realistically, it's regarded as one of the weirder songs on the album. It's not necessarily the most liked, but it's just, first of all, it has the strangest lyrics, but it actually has long verses. Like, it genuinely has long verses, which is a first for this album here. So I think that this is just him showing the fact that he's still got it. He's still able to write good music and good lyrics. It's just that he needs to get the thing that's making him suffer out of his mind first. Navigating, this one is the easiest one for the Burnout Theory, I think. My oh my, how long it's been. To me, it sounds like he's talking about how long it has been since he's progressed the lore any further. And the fact that this song has a music video that actually attempts progressing the story further, these two things kind of tie in together. And Tyler says himself that he can't seem to turn the page, which, I mean, it can be seen in a literal sense, where he's not capable of writing enough on the page to turn to the next one. And he's also apologizing, literally, for the fact that he's taking ages to write the narrative. He's also disassociating from the character of Clancy and navigating in his own head, trying to figure out what he can do about the burnout. He finds the motivation to go on, turns cold, and gets stuck again navigating his own head. It's kind of similar with the routines in the night here, but instead it's more about how he disconnects from the character of Clancy. Finally, he gives in. In order to continue the story, he needs to go back to that bad place he was in when he was originally writing it, and that's where Snapback comes in, which in some ways I think might be the climax of this whole mess. First of all, it's my favorite of the album. I just think the outro sounds just galactic. Can't come up with a better word. It just sounds very vibey and very spacey. It hits hard emotionally. Tyler sings of a good streak that's crumbling under unrelenting pressure, that sinking, burnt-out moment where you feel on the edge of collapse. Tyler sees Trench as the heart feeding him. Oh, wow. Tyler sees Trench as the hand feeding him. After all, that's what the fans always think of when they think of the best 21 Pilots album, and he knows that the critics and the industry is holding him up to that standard. Well, okay, my microphone just exploded, so now I have to record from the phone I'm reading from, so I apologize if the audio quality is dipping now. It'll just be until the end of Clancy. As I was saying, I'm got to Snapback. This song is my favorite of the album, first of all. It hits really hard emotionally. Tyler sings of a good streak that's crumbling under unrelenting pressure. That sinking burnt-out moment where you feel on the edge of collapse. And the thing is that Tyler sees Trench as kind of like the hand that's feeding him. Hence the lyric, bite the hand that feeds me, or I don't remember it actually. It's my favorite song, I don't remember the lyrics. That's a bit embarrassing. But instead of like actually being happy that there is the hand of Trench feeding him, which, by the way that I see this is that Trench is the magnum opus he's made. That's what the industry expects him to make again. So instead of him being happy about having Trench be what like actually got more critics and the industry to respect him more, he actually resents it because it's what's making him insecure and what's giving him the burnout. And that's when he actually backslides, however, because he realizes, okay, I need to do something. I'm like 10 songs in, there is barely anything that's about the lore, and the fans are expecting a lore album. So this is actually this is when I think actually he writes Paladin Straight. At the end of Snapback, he actually started writing Paladin Straight. And at the end, with the whole, I've been praying for my elasticity, that whole part there, that's him longing for a time where his brain used to be more elastic. That's literally that's the term as well in psychology or biology, where he'd be able to just kind of come up with more creative things, I guess, in his own eyes, compared to now. As I said, and closer to the introduction, he's struggling to write songs now. And he just longs for a moment where his story building and world building were just better. Now we get to Oldie Station. After everything has collapsed in Snapback, Tyler doesn't linger in that darkness. Oldie Station brings a bit of a lighter and simplified song, and it's explicitly written for the fans. He said that and saw that at a concert, if I'm not mistaken. But he's also definitely written it for himself. He took a breather, kind of like he did in The Craving and Lavish, from the stress of having to write about the lore. It's a really positive song. It's about having to move on and being able to fix yourself, that you're not broken forever. And in the structure of the album, I think it signals the emotional turning point where the burnout storyline pauses and recovery begins. This is, of course, if the Oldie Station was written after Paladin Strait was written. And At the Risk of Feeling Dumb is very similar as well, because it has nothing to do with the lore, it has nothing to do with burnout. It's a plead to just check on your loved ones. It's saying to just see if they're doing okay. Have it be because maybe they're just not talking about their problems, maybe they're experiencing burnout to this extent as well, and he's just asking the fans to make sure that their friends are okay. Because the track is just about connection between you, or between the fans and their loved ones, right? And it's not about, for like people that are struggling, if you're struggling in general, it's not about having to find the perfect solution. Nobody that actually, like no one that, like when it comes to issues or like mental problems, like you're never actually gonna find the perfect solution, and outside people can't find the perfect solution for you either. It's more about just being there, being present, and be able to talk about it with somebody. That's why At the Risk of Feeling Dumb, I think it might be one of the like most important songs they wrote, but it's just Tyler that wants to talk about something that he really cares about and thinks that is very, very important. That's neither related to the lore or burnout. Paladin Strait. Okay, this is gonna be a big one. It does technically close the album's narrative arc, but emotionally, I think it's kinda showing what Tyler can do even if he's burnt out, and especially the consequences of that. The imagery, for example, say talking about like swimming without any flotation, without any support, it speaks to the struggle that he's been experiencing when writing Clancy. He doesn't have any kind of support. It's just him trying to float through the Paladin Strait and just being on his own, because no one else can understand how having this extent of burnout feels when it comes to the storyline of Trench. And sorry, I'm getting really itchy. For example, there's also a line where it says, "I'm past the point of no return and putting the money where his mouth is," and it mirrors the moment of just not being able to turn back and be able to write the same way that he could before. And then there's the outro, which I think is a bit problematic because it's a lore nod. It's just like, okay, I'll just add this little bit of lore at the end because I barely mentioned anything about it except for the name of a place. And it lands like an epilogue more than an ending. And now we know that it's a cliffhanger, but at the time we didn't really know that yet. I mean, we had a theory, but it's not that. It's definitely not the emotional crux. And I don't think that the finale of this album wraps up a story at all. It kind of wraps up the emotional arc where he's completely disillusioned and fatigued from making the lore. And now instead, at the end of the album, he takes the leap, for better or worse, and actually decides to write again. And guess what's the song that comes after Paladin Strait? City Walls. And that's gonna be the last time he writes about the lore, and he's finally decided to commit even if the burnouts come through, which is why I think that the ending of the story might actually not have a particularly satisfying ending for a lot of fans. He's also been worried about that, he stated, as much as he wants to end everything neatly with a bow. Tyler also shows us what caused him to actually write about the lore again. There is a whole minute of silence, of bird sounds, which I think is just him gathering himself before finally telling the story one last time. And only when the outro arrives, that's where City Walls, as I said, comes in and the lore ending finally takes place. Either way, Clancy is an amazing album, I think. I don't think it's my favorite. My favorite is Trench. I gave Trench a 9.5 and Clancy an 8, but I know a lot of people that think Clancy is the best album they've made. I think it's really well written, but that's because Tyler, instead of writing it thinking of the lore, he wrote it thinking of his internal struggles, which happen to relate a lot to burnout, and then those things could actually be related to the lore as well. So honestly, it's kind of a two birds with one stone kind of situation, I think. And yeah. Finally, let's get into Breach. After talking about Clancy and 21 Pilots for the past, I assume, 25 minutes, it's time to get into the upcoming record, which is what caused the video to start in the first place. So, alright, let's get into it. The record was advertised as the final chapter once again, and I don't really fault them for that since, after all, this was meant to be a secret record, so obviously, since Clancy was meant to be the final one, since we didn't know about this one, when they were advertising that one, they had to also say it was the final one, so I don't really blame them for that specifically. However, once again, what they ended up doing is just using really cryptic videos. It was very analog horror-like, it was really spooky, very cryptic, all related to the lore and all that. And then, guess what? Once again, after they made some interviews and all that, they've said that, well, only City Walls is actually part of the lore. Once again, somewhat doing some false advertisement, but at this point it's nothing new because they've done that for Clancy, they've done that honestly for Scaled and Icy. I mean, if you remember the poster for like the live stream experience, it looked like it would be a lot more eerie and spooky than it actually was, when in reality it was a lot more vague, even though it was really cool still. It's just that it wasn't as lore related as you might think. But either way, City Walls being the only song in the record that actually is lore related, and it being only 11% of the record, it just kind of makes the advertising feel pointless, because like, why is 100% of the advertisements regarding the lore when only 11% of the album is actually about that? Like, it's not really even, you know? And the thing is that, like, if the first song is about lore, what are the other 12 songs about? I mean, this is where I think the structure matters. An album like Trench could scatter the songs out of order for an anthological feel, but if Breach did that after front-loading the ending, those tracks would lose weight. It'd be like Breaking Bad airing its finale in the middle of the season, with the rest of the episodes just being side quests. The finale would just kind of lose its punchiness, and then you just kind of be left with other episodes afterwards, and you would just be like, okay, but why are we watching this? Like, the main conflict is over. And that's why I don't think that songs after City Walls will be mostly regarding the lore. They might have some like parts that might feel like they're lore related, but for the most part they're gonna be talking about something else. And I think it'll be a linear experience this time around, unlike Trench. So yeah, I mean, the contract mentions a necromancer, aka Nico, but for the most part I think these tracks are just gonna be outside of the Trench universe, really. And that brings us to the album cover. It shows Josh handing Tyler the Clancy jacket, similarly to how he did in that London concert on the 14th of May, which I went to, by the way. And Clancy looking a bit conflicted on whether he should take it or not. And hear me out, I'm not crazy. This is Tyler refusing to take the role of Clancy once again. This is Josh handing over the jacket to Tyler, being like, hey look, it's time to get into the role again. And Tyler's like, nah, I'm done with this. This is it. For the most part in this album, I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. Hence the Clancy stole. Where is it? Here it is also partly hidden behind the jacket. Because this time around, it's not him. It's not Clancy, it's gonna be Tyler for the most part. And then there's also the hidden skull, which this is a bit more of a stretch, but the jacket, the lining, the duo all form it, and I think it's a symbol of death, of course, but it's also something that represents the death of the demon narrative as a whole. Let's get into the contract. So, on the surface, it looks like it'd be very lore related, and that's what we all thought, but the fact that he said only City Walls is actually, but the fact that he said that City Walls is the ending of the album, and I don't think it'll be an anthological feel like Trench was, I think that it's just some kind of way to mislead the listener into thinking that it's lore related for the most part. And like, yeah, of course, the music videos looks like it could be somewhat related, with Nico holding Clancy by the neck and smearing him, but it just, I don't think the song is performed by Clancy. That's what I'm trying to get to. Once you get actually into the music video, you can see that the look looks completely different. Clancy in Pan Straight, and in the beginning of the contract is where it has like a buzz cut. He's got the Clancy jacket, he's got the stole flying around, he has the horns and all that, but once we get inside of the head, I think that's Tyler actually. I think that's Tyler, like that's the head of Tyler, with the red eyes being the fans that are all eagerly waiting for like more lore to come and all that. And this is one of the main clues, but then guess what? The album cover is replicated in the contract, where Josh is handing Tyler the jacket, because you can see clearly that it is the hair, it is the outfit of Tyler, not Clancy. And then before we see what happens, it cuts back to Clancy, and that's where we're gonna see the video for the city walls. The contract isn't a literal document, by the way. Everyone assumed that, but it's also not a deal that's being made between the torchbearer and Clancy. I think it's actually meant to be the mental deal that Tyler Joseph feels like he has with the fans when it comes to keeping the promise of delivering a satisfying finale to the album, or to the whole narrative really, not just the album. And he sings about how he used to keep those promises, or how he used to see the hallucination, but I think that the promises is the fact that he was meant to continue the narrative at a steady pace, the same quality that Trench was, and the hallucination is actually him being able to imagine this world as well as he used to, and he just can't see that anymore. And yeah, just that inspiration is kind of fading now. The bridge makes this even clearer. I want to get out there, but I don't try. I don't think this is Clancy speaking. This is Tyler that's just going through extreme burnout, saying that he could just move past the story and work about other things, or work on other things, but he just can't find the energy to take the step or the courage. And by the end, he's just pleading us, just take the deal, just accept the album for what it is, even if it's not lore related, because he just doesn't know whether fans are going to accept it, even if he doesn't talk about the bishops or the glorious gone or any of the other characters or aspects of the lore that he's set. Wait, what is that? Why did the lights just go off? Wait, what is happening? Who is this? What is going on? Sorry about the light, by the way. I'm not really sure what happened. It just kind of started flashing, and then it just turned off, and now I'm using a phone flashlight, but we'll just have to deal with that. So yeah, drum show, it doesn't really fit in the whole Burnout arc or like the lore narrative. As Tyler said, it's about Josh, and it's solely about Josh. It's not about him, it's not about anyone else, it's just about how in order to feel something when he's feeling lost inside, he needs to either like do adrenaline-filled activities such as swerving around, or just have music playing out loud and just playing drums on the what do you call it, the wheel, the steering wheel. There you go, the steering wheel. And I mean, this is made clearer by Josh's line in the bridge where he says, "I've been this way, I want to change." It isn't about the story world really, it's just about him being openly vulnerable to the fans and telling him that he's just he's just been feeling uncertain about how he feels. And yeah, well, now we shall get into the next, into the album that's gonna be coming next. Sorry guys, I'm feeling a bit odd about this. Now, since only these two songs have been released as of the 6th of September, the only things we have to further theorize are the snippets shared by the band, as well as the track list that they've shared a few weeks ago. So let's just attempt drawing a linear narrative based on Burnout throughout the 13 songs that are going to be coming out in the next few days. City Walls, the opening track. We know, because Tyler's confirmed it, that it's gonna be 100% about the lore. It's meant to be a conclusion to the 10-year-old long narrative now, and I'm sure there's not gonna be anything regarding Burnout. In fact, I think this is genuinely gonna be a decent closure to the lore, but with a lot of asterisks attached. But eventually we'll get to that if I ever get around to analyzing it once it's out. Raw Fear. I love this line. It feels really wise and genuinely deep, and I actually think that the title of the song plus the lyrics indicate how terrified he feels now that he doesn't have the safety net of the lore anymore. Like, he does not know what to write about. What will the fans think about what he writes next? Will the fans actually like the upcoming songs? And that actually, I think, ties pretty neatly in Tyler trying to come to terms with his own mental health when it comes to the burnout he's been experiencing for the past few years. And this is just him sharing how terrified he feels about the upcoming album. He just feels insecure about it. Drum Show. This song is 100% about Josh. It's come out. He said it's about Josh. Josh sings in it. There's nothing to do with the lore or the burnout narrative. So let's just move on. Garbage. So this one is very vague. I actually don't think there is much to go off of this. I mean, would you move closer could literally mean anything, but the closest thing I could think of is him feeling self-conscious about being so insecure about the upcoming album that he'd rather share it with somebody only if they get close enough where he can whisper it. This is a massive stretch, I'm aware of it. I honestly couldn't think of much else that could be related to it. The contract. As I theorized earlier, this is Tyler pleading with the fans to just accept what Tyler is gonna give them, since this is not gonna be a lore-related album at all, but it's gonna be something else entirely. Hence, as I said before, it feels like he is breaching the contract, the virtual contract that he's made with the fans. Alright, this is more like it. Downstairs is, I think, definitely going to be about the experience that Tyler has gone through when making Trench, since he said in the 2019 alternative press interview that he made it in a basement, and basements are found downstairs. I generally think that this is just going to be him going over how that hiatus felt like for him. He's not really talked about it much publicly, so I think it only makes sense that before he stops making music for a while, he finally shares how it felt like to go through such a difficult experience. Robot voices. This is the longest snippet we got for the song, and it's either one of two things. Since it's placed right in the middle of the album, it's either gonna be an interlude of some kind. I don't think it would be like a Jenna love song like it was for Trench and for Clancy, or it could just be something like Lavish, which is something completely different compared to what you would expect. Since you're either expecting some kind of Burnout lore or lore like the Dima storyline. I generally believe actually that if this song wasn't an interlude, since the quote says, "The half-drawn blinds casting lines on the floor as my metal friend flashes in time." So the half-drawn blinds might be the blinds that are found on the window, like on those windows that are like close to the ceiling in a basement. The light is peeking through because they're half-drawn. And the metal friend flashing in time, I think, might be the computer where the DAW, which is what he would make the music on, it's the computer that flashes on time, meaning that this song could be connected to Downstairs, the two of them making a duo that goes over how that year-long hiatus felt like for him. Next up. Center Mass. So he's realized that the catalyst of this whole thing, or like how bad he's been feeling and all that, is the lore, and he's now finding out that he's actually worth something even without the lore. He's still got people he cares about, people care about him, the fans will still look forward to the music he makes, and he's not just gonna be like abandoned because he doesn't work on the lore anymore, even if he might have thought that for years. He's finally coming to terms with the fact that, yeah, this was a dark chapter of my life, and I think I just found out now that maybe I should just move on and people will accept me for doing that. And this is actually a great placement, because if the other two songs talk about how heavy going through the catalyst of this whole burnout was, then it makes sense that now it's about him actually starting to get over it. So I've seen a lot of discourse about Cottonwood being about Jenna, but really, I don't think there is even going to be a Jenna song on this album, because it was technically, like, this is technically a part 2 of Clancy, and there was already a Jenna song on Clancy, and so here I believe it's just going to be mostly focusing on this other narrative. I think the song is going to be going over the fact that he's not used to the fact that the lore is good. It used to be, as I said before, some kind of safety net for him to rely on. If he didn't know what to do, as much as it would suck for him mentally, he could still lean on to the lore, and that would work out fine. He knows that fans would be fine with that. So now he's just in disbelief that after 10 years, for a third of his life, he had this thing he could rely on, and now it's just gone. Again, it might be a bit of a stretch, but I genuinely think that if this is what the song was about, it could actually be very heartfelt and very genuine, and I'd like to believe this is what it's about. And the reason why it's called Cottonwood is because the time before he started writing the narrative was when he was still in Ohio, right? And that's the last time that he didn't have to think about the narrative, since for the past 10 years he had to. He was forced to. He felt like he was forced to. So he's just longing to those times where he was a lot more carefree and didn't have to make music about the thing that would stress him out the most. One way. This is a really vague. It literally just says, this is a one way. That could literally be anything whatsoever. The only thing I could think of is him talking about how the decision of leaving the lore behind is a one-way street. Once he makes this decision, he literally has to just stick with it, because the fans are not going to accept the fact that he's going to continue the story that was meant to finish. He doesn't want to, of course, but he's just coming to terms with the fact that this is a final decision and he just needs to fully move on. I know it might sound weird how this is something that would really upset him and like really mess with him and all that, yet he feels like he would miss it and feels uncertain about leaving it behind. But it is very common for people that are struggling with their mental health to just... But let me finish this, alright? Okay. It may seem weird how he feels about like leaving something that he considers unhealthy behind, but it's just a very common thing that happens when it comes to bad habits and bad mental health. It's just the vicious cycles and the mental traps somebody gets stuck in after years. Even though maybe the person is aware they're bad, it's just they know what they're like. They're very familiar thoughts and feelings that they don't feel like leaving behind. In that moment, you find the unknown that's ahead of you once you leave these parts of you behind, scarier than the actual things you're going through at the moment. This is why he's so hesitant about taking this one-way street, I think. So... My days lie dormant. Days lie dormant. The snippet is literally just Tyler saying, my days lie dormant, so we don't have much to go off of this. I feel like this song might actually cover how his days feel like they're stagnating, because now that he doesn't have the whole lore to go off of at all times, he just doesn't know what to do. He's burnt out because he's trying to make music, so he's just kind of lost now, isn't he? And this song might be doing what a lot of Scale and Icy did, because the snippet sounds really happy and really careless, because technically it's a happy thing that he did. It's something that's going to make him happier, but for the time being, he just feels like he doesn't know what to do now. He's just a bit lost, a bit empty. It's kind of like when you finish watching a really long TV show and now you're just like, what now? You just feel that bit of emptiness inside of you. I mean, eventually you get over it, the same way that he will, but it's going to feel odd for the time being. That's what I think Days Lie Dormant might be about. Tally, you believe in me somehow. I believe, based on this title alone, that the song is going to be about him reflecting on how many times he's had to rewrite parts of the narrative to not disappoint the fans. Every single time he had to rewrite it, he just write down a check, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's either going to be about him having written it so many times that it's completely lost focus of what it was meant to be originally, or him having completely lost count of it because it's happened so many times, I think. And regarding the line that he's shared regarding like the fact somebody still believing in him somehow, I think that's just him being in complete disbelief that even though he's messed up this much and he's taken this long to write the narrative and might have disappointed a lot of fans, people still believe in him. People still think that he might make good music. His family still thinks that he's doing good at his job. He's in complete disbelief that even though the lore has been completely abandoned for the most part. I mean, by now in the record, the album is not covering the lore at all. So he's just still needs to accept the fact that the people around him are still willing to love him, even if he covers other things. Now, intentions. So this is weird because two snippets were shared for this. One which says that the lyrics are, intentions are everything, and the other one which says, you will. Okay, the second one we can't do anything about, let's be real, because you will is probably one of the most vague things you could tell anybody. I mean, it could be anything. However, intentions are everything. I think kind of sums up what the song is going to be about. I think it'll be a really slow song, because we know it's about 2 minutes long. They've the track lengths are on Spotify now. It's going to be a really slow song with Tyler just softly explaining that even though he might have messed up how he behaved regarding the lore and like how poorly the world building went after Trench, he's still happy with the fact that having created a more concrete world for people to project their negative feelings onto helped people get over these negative feelings. And I know that a lot of people see it this way because, I mean, so many people, even at concerts, you just hear people saying, "Oh, you saved my life, Tyler, I love you." And seeing this, he's realizing, well, you know, maybe it's not about the final product as much as it is about the intentions. And I'm sure, like, some fans will get it because people will still listen to their music either way. But he just wants to make it clear with a final disclaimer saying, hey, look, the narrative is over. The lore is over. But I know that I might have messed it up. I know it wasn't perfect, but my intentions were good. My intentions were to help you get through hard times, to be a stable part of your life, maybe through when you're going like through really tough times at the moment. And this is just enough for him. It's enough for him to know that his music is what gets some people to just push on through, similarly to Oldie Station. So my intentions with this video were to attempt figuring out what Breach could be about a couple days prior to its release. I know that, I mean, by the time that this video comes out, most people will have either already listened to the album, or have it be due to a listening event, or because some people are leak listeners, as somebody would say. But I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents. I just wanted to say what I think the album would be about, since the band is known for writing very open music that's really easy for everyone to find their own meaning for. And just, I think that Clancy is a take on how Burnout felt like for Tyler after that album that's considered to be the magnum opus, Trench. While Breach instead is him reflecting on that and working towards acceptance and overall mental health betterment and moving on from this chapter of his life. Now, for those who only heard Drum Show and The Contract so far, let's wait patiently until September and be ready to hear what could be an album rivaling Trench, not in terms of lore, but when it comes to the authenticity and transparency. Thank you for watching, and take care.